Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to do what I consider probably the hardest thing I've ever done as far as ranking film wise. I'm going to try to rank my favorite films from Stanley Kubrick, from my least favorite to my most favorite. He is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time, if not my favorite, my single favorite. The reason I like Stanley so much is he bounced around to all the genres. He didn't get pigeonholed into, family drama or crime films or action films or mysteries or thrillers or whatever. He was willing to tackle all different types of subjects and subject matter, but his themes definitely run through all of them. You can tell he had a way of looking at the world. So without further ado, we're going to rank them from what I feel is his least effective to his most effective. So I'm going to start off, and this one really shouldn't count, but we're going to do it. This is his very first film, Film and Desire. It is a quality kind of action film, but not super over the top. I guess kind of a war movie. It's pretty much kind of unforgettable in a lot of ways. I think that he kind of dismissed it as he got older. It's just like, don't even watch this, don't even acknowledge this movie exists. But you should get it if you can and check it out. What I liked about this one is it came with his short film, The Seafarers, which is like 28 minutes long, and that was like the only way it's the only time I've ever seen it other than YouTube. So that was kind of cool to get this particular copy, so I could have both Fear and Desire and The Seafarers. To kind of complete my collection of everything he ever did. But yeah, it's kind of forgettable, to be perfectly honest. So before I show this movie, the criterion for this, I want to make sure you understand that I am not ranking The Killing as his second worst movie, because it's one of his best movies. It's going to be more towards the middle. But this awesome Criterion collection comes with his the movie before, which was Killer's Kiss, which I had never seen it until I had bought this Blu-ray and I could check it out, and it was quite good. I really really liked it. Killer's Kiss is kind of a film noir, very much in the vein of The Killing. Killing is a lot better. Killing, by a lot of people's standards, is considered like one of the last film noirs kind of ever made. Because film noir is usually generally the 40s films up into the early 50s. But I believe The Killing came out in 1955 or 56, maybe even 57. I think it may actually be 57. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check on all that, but it's the Killer's Kiss that's on here was quite good. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it's not going to be one of his best films, being that it was one of his earliest ones with like no big actors in it. But it was still cool to see, and I would strongly recommend you get this Criterion if you love The Killing. They did a fantastic transfer, and it comes with quite a few extra features. You should just get it if you really really like it. So moving on pretty quickly. This is a movie that I have always enjoyed. It just doesn't. I guess the ending is just not as cohesive as what he got as good at doing. But it has one of my favorite actors in it. Peter Sellers also has James Garner, who's oh sorry, not James Garner, James Mason, who's fantastic as Hubert. And it's just a kind of oh yeah, Shelley Winters. I always forget Shelley Winters is in this, and Shelley Winters is one of my all-time favorite films, Night of the Hunter. I know sometimes I bounce around, but that's a good film if you've never seen that one either. But yeah, this is a I guess it was a super controversial book back in the day when it came out. Was that I know it's a Vladimir Nab, Nob Nabokov, I think that's how you would say it. And I've always heard he's a fantastic novelist. Can't say I've read a ton of his work. I need to, because I keep seeing constantly his stuff is listed as some of the best of the 20th century, and I'm like, I'm living under a rock here. I've got to read his books. But I have seen a movie based on one of his books, and Lolita's famous for basically an older man falls in love with a younger woman, younger woman falls in love with a prepubescent like teen, and he seduces her mom so he can get closer to her, like all these things. And it's just very, you know it's it's obviously it's a disturbing idea for a movie and a book, but I can understand why you would explore those themes because there's a lot of sick people in the world who do that. They have that sort of degenerate mind to seek out these people and try to insert themselves in their life when they're in these formative years before they have enough seasoning to be like, hey, creep, beat it. And so, yeah, that's what this one. It's good for what it is. It's just it's not one of my favorites. I saw recently, not too long ago, David Lynch had passed away, and he put this as one of his all-time favorite Kubrick films, and it just kind of blew my mind. I went and watched it again. I was like, is there something in there he's seeing I'm not? And maybe it's because when it came out, he was younger and it was everyone's talking about it, and for him, he felt that Kubrick delivered on the promise of the novel. But for me, it just doesn't hold the weight I think that it did back in the day when it came out. But I do love the poster's fantastic, with the heart sunglasses and the heart sucker pop. It's just like very innuendo driven. So moving on, this is probably going to be one of my first controversial ones because I know, for instance, one of my really good friends has this as his all-time favorite war movie. But for me, Full Metal Jacket is on the lower tier of Stanley Kubrick. And when I say on the lower tier of Stanley Kubrick, it's one of the better films that any director could make because he almost never made a bad movie. Like even Lolita that I just showed, it's still a fantastically directed film. And this one is as well. It's kind of cut into two halves. With the first half, most people in the boot camp, most people generally consider that the superior part of the film. But the second half has a lot of really good dramatic tension that explores some ideas in war films that I don't think up to that point, especially the cynicism of it all, that I really don't think a lot of directors had even thought to consider, highlighting before. It's usually, rah rah, this is the reason we're doing it, or isn't war hell? Well, what if war is just soulless? What if it's not either or? And I think that he did a very good job with Full Metal Jacket, but it's just not within Stanley Kubrick's filmography. I don't feel it holds the weight of others. So I'll move on. The next one we're going to be focusing on is his epic, his take on Spartacus, and it's such a good film. You got Kirk Douglas in it, Laurence Olivier, you got Tony Curtis, just some huge heavyweights that deliver a fantastic film. This is basically, a lot of people think like this is how Stanley really made his bones in Hollywood. I think this was if I remember right, and I'm pretty sure I do. This was a complicated film. A lot was going wrong on set, and they brought Stanley in, I think, a couple weeks into filming to like, can you salvage this? And he did. He made it so much better. And from this film, a lot of the studios started giving him, more leeway. Like, well, what do you want to do next? Well, he ended up doing Lolita next, which was like, whoa, I can't believe you want to do that controversial movie. But Spartacus still holds up to this day. It's one of the better epics of that, late 50s, early 60s. The films that go for like 3 hours, like Lawrence of Arabia or, the Ten Commandments, all those like really big, long movies with so much going on and so many actors, Cleopatra, all that. I think Spartacus is maybe the best of them. And this is one of his first, in my opinion, like early true classics that were within the studio system. And he freaking delivered. Spartacus is great. It's one of my favorite finds. So now I would think that his next best film, in my opinion, is Clockwork Orange. And this movie is still disturbing to this day. I think it came out in 71 or 72, I want to say. And it's a great film. When I was a teenager, this was the movie everyone was talking about. Like, have you seen Clockwork Orange yet? Have you twisted your mind and seen that crazy ass film? And when I first saw it, I was like, well, that's the best movie I've ever seen. Just for it being just totally anarchic and just pushing the envelope for it. And like I said, I've seen it nearly probably 25 years after it had been done. I was like, what on earth is going on in this film? I mean, it's just set kind of like a little bit in a futuristic British society where there's ultra violence and these marauding gangs are you, kids are basically going around just doing horrifically horrible things to people, and one of them basically gets rehab to try to bring them back, and the visuals are still, they hold up, they're still really really good, and the music, I think he'd used, I know he did, I knew he used Beethoven, like, but he did like synthesizers and stuff like that to really change it up rather than it just being the normal um, classical scores. So I always liked Clockwork Orange. I always suggest it to people when they want to see like just a crazy mind blower. I'm like, it still holds up. It's freaking nuts. And to see people in Halloween still dressed up like some of the characters in it, it's disturbing, and it's one that if you haven't seen, you really 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 should see Clockwork Orange. So next, I'm gonna go ahead and put The Killing in now. And like I said before, this, a lot of people consider this like the last film noir, and it's essentially one of my favorite actors. I had to see a lot of films before I started being like, who is that guy? Over and over and over. He always delivers in the movies he's in. And then I realized later down the road, I was like, oh my god, what am I thinking of? Of course, he's in The Killing. He's the main actor in The Killing. That's Sterling Hayden, and he was in like Asphalt Jungle, and he was in the Long Kiss Goodbye, like I think that's 1971 or 72 Robert Altman film. It's kind of like a 70s take on the Philip Marlowe. I believe it's Philip Marlowe. Films from the 40s, like Maltese Falcon and all that. Maybe getting those confused, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, that those are right. But really, The Killing is a fantastic, fantastic caper film with a great ending. And if you know anything about me, the endings are really, really, really important for me. They're really important. And this one has a great ending for a caper film. And it's one of those ones I like to suggest to people, and I have never had somebody be like, man, The Killing was only okay. Usually if somebody's like, I don't like older films, I'm like, well, watch The Killing. At least it's a crime movie. It moves briskly. It's shot incredibly. And yeah, I've never had anyone be like, that was a bad movie. They're always like, dang, I didn't see that twist coming. He almost, oh, it's so good. And I was like, yep, I know. So I put The Killing next on his list. So now we're starting to get in, like, right in the middle of his filmography. And this is one everyone knows, I think, especially if you're in any way into horror movies, and that's The Shining. The Shining is awesome. The Shining, I watch it once a year around Halloween. It still holds up. It's still weird. It's still fantastic. Jack Nicholson just eats the scenery and makes this role iconic. And Shelley Duvall does a great job being the antithesis of him. Like, she's so frail, she's so high strung and nervous, and here he is just absolutely becoming a madman, just descending into pure madness. It's got one of my favorite last shots of all time that leaves you wondering and leaves you going, what did I just see? That was amazing. And there's really not much more I can add to it, because I think probably at this point a lot of people have seen this movie, or they get told when they're getting into movies like, have you seen The Shining yet? And it's a Stephen King story, and I heard famously that Stephen King and had a kind of disagreement with Kubrick when he heard about what he was doing with the story, where he was going with it, because Kubrick would he didn't always claim credit, but he would write a lot of the screenplays or rewrite them with other people in a committee. And there's a famous story where he got a hold of Kubrick, and Kubrick, he's like kind of voicing his displeasure on the things that he had heard, and Kubrick kind of cut him off. He goes, wait, Steven, do you believe in God? And Steven said yes, and Kubrick hung up. And he was like, I think by that what he was trying to get across was that if you're looking for this redemptive, cathartic moment at the end of the film to, like, bring you all back into the fold, Kubrick was like, I'm not going for that. I'm going for pure evil. I'm going for the pushing the limits of filming madness in a way. And you can't have, a good Christian ending at the end of that, basically. So, The Shining, fantastic. I always suggest it for people who want to see it, just like an iconic horror film. Next is what I believe, in my opinion, and I haven't seen all the war movies of all time, but I think that Paths of Glory is the best war movie, or should I say anti-war movie ever. Um, and surprisingly, it doesn't have like a whole ton of like battle scenes or so. It's more of kind of like a courtroom drama, if you will. But it's like essentially, platoon does not go over. It's World War I, should I say? And a platoon does not go over the trench wall when they're told to, and so they're all court-martialed. And Kirk Douglas is the lawyer for the. I believe they choose. Yeah, I know they do. I don't believe I know. They choose three people that are going to be executed, and it's all arbitrary. It's like, of the commander picks three people, and some of them have a bone to pick with the commander. That's the reason why they get chosen, and it's just basically like the highlighting the injustice, the inhumanity that war brings upon, like when you're trying to foist these rules upon combat, upon like, and it's just nuts. It has a very depressing ending. I'm not even gonna lie, very depressing ending, and it's held up. I remember being quite shook the first time I saw it. To be honest with you, I was like, man, that's not what I've seen in a normal, kind of war movie. Where's that, like, rah rah? This is why we did it, standing with the flag, or it wasn't there. It was very hollow and, yeah, disturbing. Honestly, great film, unbelievably great film. Okay, and I think it's kind of great to contrast it. This is the film that I would put slightly above it, and like right now we're starting to split hairs. By the way, should I say these are it's been masterpieces pretty much since The Shining on. You can argue some of the other ones are masterpieces too. I mean, I love them all, but I think from The Shining on, from what I've been saying, these are true masterworks. There's you could there's almost no scene you could pull from it where it's gonna make it better. Everything that's put in here, it's lean, mean, and it's perfect. And so his next one I love, and I think it's one of the best films of the entire 60s, is Doctor Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb. And where do you begin with this? It's absolutely bonkers. This is a crazy movie. And I mean that in the best way. Oh, I just noticed you're over there, girl. Um, Essentially, I mean, it's almost like, where do you start with it? He, I think, was working on this film about nuclear explosions and taking out humanity and all that, and it was a heavy film at first, and that's what he was working. And I know there's a movie from the early. I think it's called Failsafe. I'm pretty sure it's called Failsafe, and that was like the opposite of this movie, where they took everything super serious. Like, the world could end. They got all these intercontinental ballistic missiles could take us all out at any given second. Oh my God, isn't this horrible? Horrible! Don't you feel the anxiety? He was working on a film just like that, and then he realized, this is insane. This is the stupidest thing in the world, that we have to be worrying about. These leaders doing such a thing where they could wipe out all of humanity over perceived slights or miscommunication or whatever. And it's got Peter Sellers in it. It's got Sterling Hayden in it. It is just such. Oh, and I'm not even gonna forget to mention George C. Scott, who just delivers an absolutely great, great, uh, great job acting in it. He's off the wall. And in modern times, it looks like we're getting ready to head to World War III. It looks like it could be coming. Who knows? I could be totally overstating that, but this film was pretty much saying this is what's going to happen the next time. And I think it came out, I want to say 64. I want to say 63, 64, maybe around there. Uh, it's just so great. Kubrick was so smart to turn it into satire, and to get away from, like, ooh, isn't it scary? The end's here, and just to be like, if this is how it goes, this is all so stupid, and we deserve this if that's the way it goes. And it's why no one really remembers Failsafe, and everyone knows this movie. It's because of that that idea to turn it into a satire rather than a drama. So, highly recommend once again. So, true story. I first got into Kubrick right around the time that Eyes Wide Shut was being released. And I wanted to see it so bad because I had heard he died and that this was his last movie. I bought a ticket to the Sixth Sense and snuck into the theater to watch Eyes Wide Shut. And unfortunately, I got caught within like the first 20 minutes and kicked out. I acted like I didn't know what was going on, and I was like, "Oh, I thought that was it." And they're like, "Go see." I'm sure there's so many, young men trying to get in there to see this for the sex scenes. It's got the famous sex scenes and all this, but I was generally one of those not people that it wasn't just. I may have been there for a little bit to see some sex scenes. Not gonna lie with you, but it was also like I had heard that this movie was, at first it had Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise in it, a married couple working in it. And so I was like, that was intriguing. It was his last film. It was dealing on the taboo topics of sex and marriage and all that. And so, yeah, it's Eyes Wide Shut if you haven't figured it out yet. That's in my top 3 of his. And this film used to be a little more back. I would say this film used to be more around The Killing, The Shining. Actually, I probably would have put it below The Killing, to be perfectly honest. It would have been. I knew it was better than Clockwork Orange when I saw it. Finally saw it all the way through. I was like, that one is gonna stick with me. That was out there. But unbelievably shot and well composed and everything. Oh man, you are causing a scene, girl. But when I got married, this film took on a whole new dimension, and for the better. I understood things in ways that I couldn't have understood as a single man, basically, or someone and I think anyone who hasn't been in a relationship, it's the big part of it, like a big long-term relationship where, you know, there's that initial stage with the butterflies and it's hot and heavy, and then you settle into life, and that's when stuff can happen. That's when the cracks can show and people can pull at the phrase there, at the end of it, and it just continually gets better. This is a movie that somehow it's like wine. It is aging like wine. It is getting better and better and better each year. And sometimes I wonder, like, before I'm dead and gone, am I going to look at Eyes Wide Shut as the best movie of his thing? And I'm like, that's nuts. I mean, I can't believe that I would even think such a thing. But yeah, it's Eyes Wide Shut is an amazing film. It is every bit as good as all the films that I just talked about before, and then some. For him to explore in his last film human relationships, after a lot of people accused him of always being such a cold director, looking at things almost disdainfully, the way he looked at humanity. I found this to be a tender film. I found this to be a film that he was longing to see, a relationship mended and held together. And I thought that was cool. And like I say, as I've gotten older, especially, I mean, there was one of the first movies when I was really getting to know my wife and stuff. We were talking about movies, and she was like, "Wow, you're really passionate about the Stanley Kubrick guy." And I was like, "Have you seen Eyes Wide Shut?" And she was like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, do I show her? do we bring up these topics just yet?" And I was like, "You know what? Go for it." And thankfully, she loved it. She's like, "That was a fantastically good film." So, yeah, that's what we did. You're just gonna hang out there the whole thing, aren't you? That's hilarious. I did not expect JoJo to make an appearance today. So, I wanted to say, too, the reason I thought to shoot, good lord. The reason why I wanted to shoot this film in particular, this episode, should I say, was a man who came into my life who's my mother's best friend's husband. And when I was younger, I got to hang out with him a few times, and he heard I liked movies, and he would be like, "You seen Stanley Kubrick's?" And I was like, I had no idea. I was like, "Listen, man, Braveheart's the best movie of all time." I remember saying that to his face, and He was nice. He gave me a smile, and he's like, it's okay, but it's not the best movie of all time." And I remember challenging him. I was like, what is the best movie? What do you think, man? And he was like, it's hard to not say that. And I'm going to say these last two films in particular, I had a really hard time over these last two films. I really had a really hard time picking between them. But I went with 2001. And honestly, on any given day, I could go back and forth between this one and the one I picked as my favorite for now. But I love 2001. And that's what my friend Daryl, he recently passed away. That's part of the reason why I thought to do this little series is he was telling me about 2001. He's like, 2001 A Space Odyssey. He's like, you got to see it. If you're going to sit here and tell me Braveheart's the best movie of all time, you've got to see this film. And I was like, 2001 A Space Odyssey. And I remember seeing the poster. I went to the video store, and they had this on the box. And I was like, well, this looks dope. I was like, what the hell is going to be going on, Space exploration and all this sort of stuff. And, I got it. And I didn't understand a lot was going on, to be perfectly honest. It was kind of a slow moving, methodically paced thing. I mean, it has the famous jump cut where, the primitive man throws the bone in the air, and then it jumps cut 1,000,000 years or more in human development and everything, and then here comes a spaceship. And, I was young, but I was even then I was like, well, that was awesome. I understood, like, what he did with that. Like, way, way back in the past, and now we're way, way, way into the future. Fantastic. It was such a great idea. And then, you cut to the end of this thing where, he's our guy is meeting basically the alien civilization, and it's like how outside of comprehension it would be for us to encounter such a thing. An advanced species. And, the Stargate sequence where all the lights are trippy and going through all that. It was so freaking cool for someone. I think I was probably like 13 or 14. I was just like, what is going on? Like this, I couldn't figure it out. And I knew when it was over, it was one of the 5 greatest films I'd ever seen. But I couldn't like talk to anybody about like what I actually saw. I didn't, like the baby at the end, the space baby. I was like, what the hell is going on? And the music was beyond epic. But I just knew that like I'd seen a lot of movies that had a beginning, middle, and end, but this thing was not like that. This was beyond beginning, middle, and end. And for that, that's it. That's part of the reason why I love it so much to this day, and it still holds up. Is it's an epic. I mean, it's a space odyssey. It is truly. It's almost beyond words, and I know that may sound absolutely hyperbole, but it is. It's just like, it's not just this, it's not just that. It's just a microcosm of the human spirit and our endeavor to expand, to expand our minds, to push beyond the horizon. And it's so hopeful. And this is where a lot of people say like, we never landed on the moon stuff, because Stanley Kubrick shot the footage. Because he did such a good job of making space, like on film, that people were like, obviously if it's staged, if the moon landings are staged, it has to be Stanley Kubrick who was behind all that, because there's no better director. And I'm going to say for the record, we landed on the moon, in my opinion. I'm not going to even go into that, but I think that it's just, I had a really hard time not picking this number one. I had a really hard time. And like I say, maybe tomorrow I could rewatch it again and be like, oh yeah, it's definitely number one. But for now, I'm going to put it at number 2. If you haven't seen it, you've got to see 2001 A Space Odyssey. You have to see 2001. And I know there's going to be times where you're going to be like, it's slow. There's not explosions. There's not an alien bursting out of a chest. There's not a... Please stay to the end. And you may have to watch it twice. You may need to look up people's, analysis of it. Like I said before, I don't want to analyze these films as much as I want to just recommend them, maybe give a little bit of backstory behind it, and tell you to go see it, because I don't want to shade how you view these films. You need to see them with an open, clear mind, your own open, clear mind. And maybe it won't hit as hard as these other films, but I would be shocked. I'd be shocked if after you watched all of Stanley Kubrick stuff that I just suggested that you're going to put this as one of his lower films. I just don't see it. I don't see how you can do it. It's immaculately shot, uh, fantastic actors. It's just so freaking good. So now we come to number one. I'm gonna say when I first saw this movie, I would have put it in the middle to the lower third. That's the honest truth because I was like, it's too long. It's the actor is not, I don't think that I think he's kind of dull in a way. I think it's muted. What's up with this? But with all Kubrick films, I've watched all these multiple times. Each time I have watched this film, I find something new. I find something amazing. And I do think of all of his films, it's his best shot film. It's gorgeous. And that's Barry Lyndon. And I recently was fortunate to get to travel internationally. And I always dread it because I take many books on the plane just in case. But I always hope that I can watch a film I haven't seen, or just watch a movie again that's great. Because if I'm going to be falling through the sky, at least I want to be like, I was watching one of my favorite films. And sure enough, Barry Lyndon was on there. And it's probably like the seventh or eighth time I've seen it. And I watched every single second of this 3 hour plus movie. I loved it. I had a person sitting beside me who had never seen it. And they were like, what are you watching? I mean, he watched like 2 movies before mine was done. And I was like, yeah, it's Barry Lyndon, man. And, I kept seeing him glance over because it's just so beautiful. Literally, he, for quite a few of them, he zooms in. He's all the way zoomed in, and he zooms out. And by the time he's completely zoomed out, it looks like a 17th, 18th century painting. I mean, it really does. And you're just like, wow. I mean, the lushness of the trees are surrounding, the characters and all they're doing. It's a technical feat, but it took me a long time to realize how good the story behind it was. And Ryan O'Neal is in this, and a lot of people when they have qualms with this movie that I have found is they're like, well, Ryan O'Neal's not a likable actor, or I felt that he was too stiff, or he didn't have the charisma that you'd expect from an actor that big to be starting to. But that's the genius of Kubrick, because his character, he is more like his character as far as and should I say, I should kind of set it up. Barry Lyndon is essentially this Irish upstart, who's going to move up through society no matter what he's got to do, no matter what size he has to flip on, no matter who he has to screw over, who he has to steal from, who he has to cheat. He is going to be in high society, and you're going to know his name. And Ryan O'Neal was perfect for that because, and this is not to disparage the dead. He died a few years ago, I think. And I know he did die a few years ago, but he's not the greatest actor of all time. He's handsome and he's charismatic enough, but he's kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Like stilted, stunted. And like his delivery, I think, like there's almost an unsureness in the way he's doing some of this movie, and it's like that's what is perfect about it, because Barry would be having that kind of unsureness as well, being in these with these people who are highfalutin, and he's not. And it's his beauty and his ruthlessness that is going to move him up through society. And it's unbelievably ironic, like, not to give anything away, but like the moment he shows humanity is his downfall. The moment he shows grace and forgiveness, that's when the world eats him alive. And it's like, if that's not a thing that, a theme that he explored a lot in his movies, I mean, he probably sends it the clearest across in this movie, Barry Lyndon. I love this movie so much. It's one of my favorite posters. I would love to have a huge Barry Lyndon poster one day. And, I can't believe that this is my number one. When I was sitting here doing this, I was like, it's going to be in the top 3 for sure. And then I got to the top 3, and I was like, I knew 2001 would be either 1 or number 2. I knew that. I was surprised that Eyes Wide Shut jumped Doctor Strangelove. I was like, oh, but in my eye, I've gotten older, married, and all that stuff. I'm like, I get that movie now. I really get that movie now. But Barry Lyndon went from about three to number one, and maybe it's because I just watched it recently. You know, maybe it'll go back to number two. I don't ever see Eyes Wide Shut being number one. It's either gonna be 2001 or Barry Lyndon. But I just love this movie. I had read that he wanted to make a movie on Napoleon, and I think the movie's called Waterloo, and it was a came out before, and it was a disaster. It lost a ton of money, so all the studios are like, nobody wants to see a Napoleon movie, which I would, I'd like to, but maybe that's a good thing because he put all of that research into the area, into that, sorry, put all his research that he'd been doing of that specific time period and everything, and put it into this movie. So the costumes were, specific for that time period, and the vernacular was for that time period. It's and it has such a good score. Oh my god, it has such a good score. Just a devastatingly good score. I love this movie in ways that I can't love other movies. I think it's because of seeing, this man try to move up through society, and I would not do some of the things he did. I would not, be willing to push the envelope like that. I don't know why. I guess my middle class morality would kick in and be like, oh no, that's not good. That hurts everyone. But to see another character do it and to be like, yeah, I'm going to do it because I'm not going back. I'm not going back to what I came from. I'm going forward to what I'm going to be. It's kind of inspiring, even though he's a scoundrel. And you're just like, dude, this is not cool what you're doing, but you get it, especially in this world we're in now, where everything's money obsessed, and not that it wasn't then and everything, but it's like even more so hyper focused on it. It's like you can understand why people are willing to do anything, hurt anyone to get whatever the hell they want. And yeah, Barry Lyndon is, in my opinion, his best movie. It's definitely his themes on human alienation from the environment, society, each other. It's so prevalent in this movie, and I can't strongly recommend it enough. It's 3 hours long. I know a lot of people have been like, "Good Lord, I got to tap out. It's too long." But I don't see how you can not love this movie. It's so beautiful. He famously got NASA to give him lenses so he could shoot some of these scenes under candlelight, so it would look like what it would look like in the late 1700s. And it's astounding how amazing the set design is. Whoever did the set design on I'm gonna take a second to see if it's on the back here, because if it is, I would. Dang it! I wish I knew. I should have looked that up before I started. Whoever did the set design, they won the Academy Award, so god dang, I should know that. They should be remembered for all time. This should be. I'm gonna do a movie from 1700 to 1850 or whatever. This should be the gold standard by which you are trying to measure your costumes, your sets, your speech, everything, because it was so well researched and done. And like I said, I cannot put into words how much I love this movie. It's so freaking good. But it is truly splitting hairs between this and 2001. So that's why I'm going to hold them both up and say, of all the films I just talked about, I think you should see these two the most. And then immediately follow it up with Eyes Wide Shut. Because they're all so good. But, all the other ones I talked about are just as fantastic. And before I leave off, in the DVD series, this came with like a collection pack that my parents got me for Christmas maybe like 25 years ago or more. And it has this great little documentary, Stanley Kubrick, Life in the Pictures, that's narrated by Tom Cruise. And I'd be remiss if I didn't suggest you check that out, because I bet you this may even be on YouTube, the whole thing. And it's just kind of a good kind of rundown on his career and the themes that he focused on. I think that if you watch this, it may give you a good starting point for what the films you want to see first. But yeah, that's Stanley Kubrick, Life in the Pictures, and I just rated him. I can't believe I did that. I'm like literally sweating from doing it. So much work. All right, thank you.